Okay, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to thank you all for coming to this evening's Naviance Information Overview. My name is Sean O'Brien. I am the Director of Guidance here at the East Williston School District. And tonight, I'm just going to be walking all of you through Naviance Family Connection, which is a tool we here at East Williston in the guidance department will use with your children over the next several years of high school to help them to start to identify some of their career and college goals going forward. So just as we move forward, I'll walk you through what to expect from our presentation this evening, and we'll get into it. So first, tonight, we'll talk about what is Naviance. We'll look over some of the career search tools that we will be utilizing with your students as high school progresses. The resume building tool as well, which is an opportunity for them to log some of their activities, extracurricular sports, as well as employment opportunities that they do throughout high school to build a strong resume for college. And also a look down the road at what to expect from Naviance in the later years of high school beyond freshman year as well. So first, what is Naviance? Family Connection is a comprehensive career and college search tool. Our students use Naviance to identify their areas of interest, how those interests may translate into future careers, and what preparation pathways are needed to pursue those careers. In addition, as their high school career progresses, information such as GPAs, AP, and college entrance exam scores also become easily accessible for the students. And it helps them to sort of start to identify how competitive they may be as they apply to colleges in the future. And I'll walk us through a little bit of that later. For our purposes tonight, we're going to be looking at the portions of Naviance that are most applicable to your ninth graders. Fundamentally, the career search and resume building tools. I will touch on some of the other pieces as well, but I want to make sure just to give you a sense as to how your students have utilized it thus far this year, just to kind of bring everybody together. So the career search tools, and you know, it's interesting tonight as we're going to go through Naviance a little bit. If any of you do have older children, and maybe you came to one of my presentations for 12th or 11th grade parents, you might notice that the Naviance you're going to see tonight looks a little bit different than the one you saw either in October or December. The reason for that being, as of this school year, Naviance is in the process of an overhaul of their system, specifically some of the career search options. And I will not lie to you, I like them a little bit more. But it does make for an interesting adjustment. As a tool that you've grown so familiar with over the years changes, you know, of course, there are adjustments that go with that. We are one of the earlier adopters of the new Naviance format in the district. This does not go live, I guess, on the larger platform for Naviance until this coming July. They did give districts the opportunity to opt in early. And for me, with the position our district is in, as we're looking to expand our use of Naviance, I felt it unwise to continue to do these parent training sessions, to continue to get our students acclimated to a version of the program that would no longer be used come July. So we are using the most up-to-date version, the one that will be more widely used come this summer. And so there are some changes to it. I think overall the changes are good. But so you are all kind of getting a sneak peek, so to speak, at what Naviance looks like. And just to walk you through the background of Naviance a little bit, because I'm not sure, obviously, how familiar the parents here are with it in general. Naviance is one of those programs that I've used in every school district I've worked in on the island. I would be hard pressed to identify districts on the island that are not either using Naviance now or have not used Naviance in the past. And it's one of those tools that has historically, in my opinion, had a lot of untapped potential. In most cases and in most districts, students really don't pick Naviance up until junior year. It's utilized primarily for the college search feature, as well as the application support features of it. Counselors are able to send supporting documents to schools through Naviance much more quickly. And that's really kind of where it lives in most districts. There was always that career search piece The most useful of them in the past happened to be a tool called the Career Interest Profiler. In most cases, if a district was really aggressive with Naviance, students didn't really start to get a look at it until grade 10. With some of the adjustments Naviance is making to their programs, I really feel like it's coming to its own, and it's kind of finding its fit with some of what we're looking to do as part of our guidance program here in the district, which is to I should say, assist students in identifying areas of career interest that they have early, so they can start to make more informed decisions that relate to their course of study, obviously the electives that they'll take at Wheatley, some of maybe their outside activities, internships, or other summer learning opportunities they may pursue. So again, they can start to put themselves in a position where they put into place the building blocks for what will ultimately be their future career. So that being said, the career search tools in Naviance, which is really where we're focusing in the lower grades, the ninth grade in particular. The career assessments in Naviance, I already mentioned the Career Interest Profiler and the Career Cluster Finder, which is what our freshmen were introduced to by the guidance counselors last week in their English classes, help those undecided students start to gain a better sense of the fields that match their interests. So in the case of both of these particular assessments, the students are given a series of tasks that might be performed as a part of various jobs, and they indicate whether or not that task is something they'd like to do, dislike doing, or in the case of the Career Interest Profiler, they actually have the opportunity to express that they're unsure how they feel about it. So the two examples I have here, and this one is from the Cluster Finder. The one that was given is give presentations or you enjoy public speaking, and then the student would indicate if that's something they like or dislike. And of course, in the profiler, they tend to be a little bit more in depth and a little bit more detailed, a little bit more specific when it comes to certain jobs or tasks. So the career interest profiler sample there, developing a more accurate way to predict the weather. And again, the student would indicate if they like it or dislike it or they're unsure. Once the assessment's completed, a student receives data on a number of different career fields and majors related to those fields that help them to develop a greater sense of what preparation might be required going forward. Now, of course, you can kind of start to get a sense from this slide of what that looks like, but I feel it's helpful to kind of give you a sneak peek at Naviance. So what I'm going to do, hold on, let me go from sharing my tab to sharing my screen, and I'll let you take a look at the demo account. Let's just see. Okay. So now you all should have my screen. If someone could just unmute for a quick second and just let me know if you're good and you can see what I'm showing here, this Naviance screen.
Yes.
Perfect.
Yeah, we can see it.
Perfect. So this is the view from the splash page of what the students actually see when they log into Naviance. So I mentioned it in the email I sent out as a reminder about this evening, and I alluded to it a little bit before. Our counselors pushed into the ninth grade English classes to ensure that our freshmen were signed up on Naviance and gave them an overview of some of the different features in Naviance. I'm going to walk all of you through what the students saw last week as well, and give you a sense of what some of the outcomes that they got from those that cluster finder specifically assessment that they did. So this is the splash page, and you can see here students have the opportunity to get little welcome messages that we can leave. We can customize that by grade level. So the freshman message is different from the junior message depending on what information we want them to know. There is a translation function as well. We have enabled it for as many languages as Naviance will allow. So again, it gives students who are maybe new to the English language or English language learners the opportunity to get this message and communication as well. Some of these tools here, again, will be used in later years just to identify the different colleges that they're interested in. They can favorite colleges so they can go back and look into them later. The careers and clusters that they're thinking about after they complete their cluster finder, students have the opportunity to, again, favor different career clusters. But what I'll do here, I'll take you up to the top. In the past, and if you were in the most notably the 11th grade presentation I did in December, When I walked you through the career interest profiler, you might have noticed I went to the careers tab. Since that new update and that new look, Naviance facelift has moved those career tools to the self-discovery tab. So clicking on that and then going to self-discovery home takes us to the list of different self-discovery assessments that Naviance utilizes. And so the demo student account that I've created right here has the two assessments that our 9th and 10th graders will be going through this year. Of course, the 10th graders will be looking at the career interest profiler. Your students, the 9th grade, will be going through that with the guidance counselors next year. For 9th grade, the career cluster finder is what was completed in those English classes. And once it's completed, we can hit view results. And the cluster finder takes the different interests and self-professed personality characteristics and preferences that the students identified for themselves. And it puts together a summary of different, what Naviance refers to as career clusters that match those interests. So they get a summary just indicating, again, what the report is displaying so the students know what they're looking at. They get a clickable list of their top 4 cluster matches. So this student, this demo student, who, well, actually is me, happened to get hospitality and tourism, human services, law, public safety, corrections and security, and business management and administration as their top 4 matches. I'll show you what to do with those in a moment. Just scrolling down, it also gave the overall cluster ranking. So Naviance has a listing of, I want to say 15, I don't remember exactly, but 15 total different clusters that careers are assigned to. You get the top 4 as clickable results, but it also breaks down the overall list. So if you look here, and this is something we had the students draw their attention to as well, those top 4 in the case of this demo student, the top 3 were scores of 10 compatibility. That's the most compatible it can be with your interests. Number 4 was a 9, but we encourage them to look to this list because, as you see here, business management, which was that 4th cluster in the demo students' results, was a 9. Their 5th and 6th were 9s as well. And education and training right behind it at 8. So this is not to discourage students or funnel them into one area, but it is to give them a sense of where their interests align. So scrolling down, they can see where they score in each of the different career clusters, and then it'll give some information on the interest profile within the cluster. So these are all of the prompts that they were given as they completed the assessment that they answered in the affirmative to. So as an example, the student indicated they like to solve technical problems. They like to follow logical step-by-step procedures, perform in front of others, be the leader of the group, work with computer programs. And again, just moving down through the affirmatives, different qualities that the person indicated they have. Planning, creative problem solving, good communication, good listening, all of the different characteristics and the school subjects that they indicated in the affirmative that they have, that helps them to kind of align to some of these clusters. So just to scroll back up, and we'll start with the top 4 just because they're readily clickable. So for the purposes of showing all of you, it's a little easier for me. Students were able to look at these clusters and start to explore some of the different information within each of them. And so just clicking on the hospitality and tourism cluster, because it's the first one. It gives an overview of the types of careers that are found in this cluster, related pathways within them. The counselors and I talked about this at length before introducing this topic to the students, and we agreed the related pathways, this is a function that we recommended to our students to stay away from a little bit. It's a little clunky. I almost feel like it works backwards a little bit. It sort of puts the different careers within this cluster into certain categories, and you'll find it within each cluster. But I find that for the purposes of our students in 9th grade who are first setting out on the kind of the first exploration and the first foray into this, for them to have to kind of, they may have a career in mind that they're interested in already, for them to have to click deeper within these different pathways to start to identify that, it just didn't feel right. So they're able to find the different careers in this cluster by scrolling down a little bit and clicking related occupations. So for us, that's where we've advised them to go. If you happen to be sitting down and looking at some of these results with your child, or and we'll talk about parent accounts at the end of the presentation. But if you're browsing some of their results in the parent account, you know, my recommendation, the related pathway is fine, but it sort of it steers you off course a little bit. So again, they're able to learn a little bit more about this particular cluster. Upcoming events, you'll see no matches found for right now. This is a new feature in Naviance. As an example, if any summer program internship opportunities or anything like that come across the school's desk, we now have the ability to enter those into here. So students who do find that they're interested in this pathway, if we find an opportunity that relates to it on the school's end, we can put that in and then a student can research it. Obviously, this is a brand new feature. This just went live for our school about 2 weeks ago or so. Naviance just made schools aware of the fact that it would be available about a month or so before that. So this is something that we're still working on getting up and running, but throughout your child's time at high school, this is something they'll be able to look at. The employment outlook for a particular cluster, we're going to definitely extend that session. The employment outlook for this particular cluster. So it gives an idea as to essentially how many jobs in the U.S. Are available in a given cluster, the percentage of the workforce that it makes up, the growth potential for it. So as students are looking at a particular cluster, they're able to get a sense, again, of what the growth opportunity will be for them. And then clicking here, related occupations. This gives us the different jobs that exist within a cluster. And as you can see here, they get a sense of the education level or the preparation level typically needed to get into that, the median salary nationwide for someone in that career. And then they are able to click into it and get a better sense. So every career that you would see under this related occupations category here would also be found by navigating in these pathways I mentioned earlier in the cluster. The difference is, for you to find it, you have to make sure you click on the right pathway. So for us, we've encouraged them to get away from it because, as you can see, they can explore the careers through here, which for students starting out, this is more what I want them to look at. So, and one of the things that we found so useful and so helpful about this, and Naviance kind of, I think, does a good job here of moving away from some of the, I don't know if any of you had this experience in my high school. We actually did get kind of a little career assessment inventory that we took in my school. And it kind of just spat out careers with too much context or too much explanation of what they were. And you got this list, and without really anyone there to frame it, you kind of turned around and said, oh, so is this what I'm going to be? What am I using this for? Where am I going with this? The information here kind of helps our counselors to steer the kids away from that. And just as an example, actually, and I happen to be in the hospitality and tourism cluster. One of our guidance counselors, Mrs. Schachter, was telling me about one of the English classes she pushed into, and the students had completed the cluster finder, and they were looking at their different pathways. And one young lady happened to get the hospitality and tourism cluster. And as she was looking at it, she kind of yelled out loud, "Oh my God, I'm going to be a bartender?" And she was looking at the bartender career. And of course, Mrs. Schachter was able to explain to her that these are not necessarily, obviously, the careers that you will find yourselves with. But when you click into those careers, even if it's not a job, obviously, that you necessarily want, there's still value in exploring them. And the reason here, and I'll click into bartender because we were able to turn it into such a teachable moment for the young lady. When you're looking at the bartender field, you get a sense again of the level of education that's typically needed, the median national salary, a listing of what they do, a snapshot of wages across the U.S. So we saw up top that was the median national salary. If you look here, you are able to hover over the different states and get a sense within that of what the average salary is, specifically New York. Scrolling down, a breakdown of the Holland traits. These are the different basic types of personalities. So it's just, someone in this typically tends to fall into the enterprising, conventional, and realistic personality traits. They like to lead and persuade. They like to sell things and ideas. They work with numbers, records, and machines in an orderly way. They like to work with their hands. And scrolling down, careers that are related to it. So as students investigate the career more, they can get a sense of maybe what they're interested in. Maybe there's some pieces here they're interested in, some they dislike. They can find related careers. But beyond that, clicking on this tab up top, skills and experience tab. And this is where we encourage both that young lady and the rest of the students to look. Just because you get a career that you may not necessarily feel is a fit for you, there is a reason it did find its way to your profiler. And so as you read it, you can get a sense of the different knowledge areas that people who are successful in this career, who go in this career, will typically need, the different skills that they'll need to utilize. And so just for the bartender, active listening, speaking, persuasion skills. So it's not necessarily hey, when you look at this career, and even if it's not for you, start to look at what some of the personality traits or building blocks that your answers on the profiler might have indicated are strengths of yours. And how can you start to look at careers? Are you noticing themes in the careers that come up for you? And so for this particular lady, she noticed kind of some of these skills in common. And then if we go back in one of her other clusters, business management and administration, and again, it gives that overview. Go into related occupations. Advertising and promotions managers. Again, the overview of it. But when we go into skills and experience, the students are able to see and make the connection. When you look at the skills here, active listening, speaking, persuasion, they come up here as well. So the students are able to start to get a sense of what are some of the skills I'm having that as these careers are coming up, you know what, some of my answers on the cluster finder indicated that these are areas of strength for me. And what are the careers I can use to kind of leverage those skills to get what I want? And maybe what are some of the things that I still need to work on? That, okay, so identify a job, and say the student decided that an advertising and promotion manager was for them. Okay, well, you know what? I really feel like I'm great at listening to people. I'm great at hearing them when they speak. The student might be good at public speaking. Critical thinking, they feel good about. How can I start to kind of take those strengths and develop them a little bit more? What are some things I can do in the classroom, out of the classroom as an extracurricular to build that? So in those cases, we advocate that the students possibly start to look at joining something like our mock trial club, taking our public speaking classes. Those are things that they can then put on their activities resume. So if they start to apply to schools with that career in mind, they have a resume that indicates it. But just beyond the importance of the resume and the importance of getting into the school you want with the program you're looking for, once you actually get into that job, you want to have started to have cultivated some of these skills and kind of having that knowledge of where you're going and maybe some of the strengths you already have that you might not think about them necessarily unless you see them put in front of you. We find is so helpful to the kids. So they're able to see the different skills that the careers that they research typically require, as well the abilities that the folks in these careers typically need and how important they are to the career. And what I've always drawn my attention to for students, the activities and the tasks that folks in a career typically engage in. And so what I've always advocated students to do is, as they're looking at a career, look at the tasks. And as you really start to get interested in it, take this tasks list and just start to put for yourself pluses and minuses next to the tasks. A plus for the things that you're interested in doing and you could see yourself doing and enjoying, and minuses next to the things that maybe would be a turnoff in this job for you. And if your pluses outweigh your minuses, well, this is probably a career that you're going to be strongly interested in and you're going to like doing. If your minuses outweigh your pluses, maybe start to look at other careers and occupations that are related that have some or more of these pluses without a few of those minuses. And that's what we really want the students to do in this exploratory phase, is get a sense of what it is they'd like to do and what jobs match what they're doing. And then finally, the wages tab, it gives us that same map from the splash page, again, of the average salary by state as well as national salary for people in this career. This is new to this update to Naviance, and I found I really like it. In addition, it also gives a breakdown by major cities in the state you have selected. So obviously here at Wheatley, we're in New York. So students are able to see, of course, again, the New York average, and then the breakdown by major city area of what folks in this career make, the high end, the medium end, and the low end. And again, I encourage students, especially in ninth grade, don't pay too much attention to this tab. Obviously, I want the students to be paid well for what they do, but first really are a fit for you and match your interest. And then find the ones that take those interests and those strengths you have and what you can apply to do what you enjoy and make the money you'd like to make. So I advise the students to look at this tab last. Of course, they always run right to it, and then they work their way back. And we in the guidance department work with them to help them find that happy medium. But obviously, with a parent account looking at the students' results, you can walk them through this as well if they have questions, and it's good to see. So again, this is just part of that research process where students learn to make that balance between what do I enjoy and what are the skills I need, and then how can I apply it to make sure I'm well paid for those skills. And these are the things we'd like them to work on over time. And then finally, going back to the overview page, if a child decides, hey, you know what, I'm set on this career, maybe not set, but I really think I'm interested in it. What do I need to do now to get into it? So it does tell us at the top there. This is an average 4-year of college occupation. So if they go back to the cluster, if you're interested in getting into a career in this cluster, the preparation, what are the related majors? And they can actually see a listing of what majors the folks who go into this cluster have historically gone through in college, at that college preparation level, to start that conversation with their guidance counselor, or even just for their own knowledge and edification to start to look around. As an example, for that student who was considering being an advertising and promotions manager, they might say, well, would I want to go for business administration? Would I want to go for management science in general? Would I want to go for advertising? And they can start to then research those majors and look up a few different programs and see, as they look at the courses of study, what interests them. They can talk to their guidance counselor about historically what folks interested in that career have majored in the past. It gives them a little bit more knowledge of what they're looking at from an early age, and it gives them an opportunity to kind of start these conversations earlier. And then again, you see the little heart icon here. Students do have the opportunity to favorite pathways and clusters that they're interested in. The demo student here, I've favorited the business management, so then they can get back to it a little bit more quickly, and they don't have to navigate through the cluster finder. One thing I will mention that does disappoint me just a bit with this update is, as I've mentioned, a lot I like. You're looking at this list of majors here, and I have sent an email to Naviance about this. What you used to be able to do, not that the folks at home are really interested in what we used to be able to do as opposed to what we can do now, but I'm hoping it does get brought back. We used to be able to click on any of these majors and would actually take us to a listing of all of the colleges and universities that Naviance has on record that offer that given major. So then the students were able to get right into a list of different schools that have that major. They were able to drill down and see what Wheatley students who had been historically admitted to that school in the past had as a GPA, as an SAT or an ACT score. As of right now, that's not available. I'm hoping they return it. Students do still have the opportunity to do a search by major and find that information. So that functionality is not entirely gone. It just requires a few more clicks. And we'll be walking students through how to do that as we go forward in the future. But I felt it important to mention it because I'm hoping that feature does get put back into Naviance. And if so, I did want you all to know that it was possible. So from here, again, if we do have clusters favorited, the students can go to their careers page and they can see the different careers and clusters that they have favorited. They can filter them to get to them more easily. So if the student wants to go back and continue researching, he or she can. In addition, another feature that they have added, which I do like, in the past, once you took these assessments, the results were locked in. If you made a mistake, if you didn't take it seriously, it was done. That retake option has been added. So your child can take this cluster finder this year, and we change, our interests change. If they do decide they want to redo it, they have that ability to do so. So this is kind of the key, the first part of what we walk the students through, that cluster finder, how to navigate the results, how to apply those results, and how to take some of the next steps. The other thing, as I mentioned, in the case of that student, as they were looking at some of the related skills in that career, Mrs. Schachter was talking to her about then, okay, if you take those skills and they're interests of yours, how do you capitalize on them? What clubs would you take? What courses would you take? Electives? What clubs might you join? What other things might you do on the outside? Then the conversation turned to, from there, when you apply to college, one of the key things you're going to need is going to be your activities resume. And what we have found, and I found this in all of the districts I've worked in, certainly not just here, is that students typically do not start to prepare their activities resume until the end of junior year at the earliest. And what we do see then, sorry, just flashing back. What we do see then is obviously it's a mad dash. They're trying to remember, what did I do? What years did I do this? We found it's easier for them to make sure that they're going through it throughout high school. So for that reason, we're encouraging our students to start their activities resume as early as ninth grade. And from there, if they go to About Me and click resume, the guidance counselors in their presentation walk them through how to use the resume tool. So here, students are able to put together a running document that lists their extracurricular activities, any volunteer service they might be doing, any clubs that they're a part of, artistic achievement. You see the sample student plays the cello. Of course, if they're involved in sports, things like that. And it's as simple as hitting the plus button, selecting a category if the category is not already on their resume, and then adding it here. If they begin by putting in, as I say, we already have an extracurricular activity for this child. Say the student picks up, oh, you know what? I added Social Studies Honor Society. It could be as simple as add a new extracurricular activity, type it in, and within a few minutes they're done. So the counselors walk them through this as well. We've encouraged them to do it. I am working with some members of the staff as well to see if we can get a resume check-in component built into some of the students' classes as they go along as well, just to kind of help them along. But this is a tool that your children have access to that we are encouraging them to utilize. We highly recommend that they utilize it to build that strong resume for life after high school. And we ask that you help them along with that as well. And again, the students, once they have a greater sense of the careers they're interested in and where they want to go, it gives them a more targeted way to sort of start to develop this resume. Now, does that mean that their primary and total focus should be on building a resume that only focuses on making them seem, in the example of the sample student, like the world's best potential and prospective advertising promotions manager or aspiring at? No, of course not. If your child is interested in playing soccer, soccer may have nothing to do with that. They should still continue that, and we encourage them to do so. But this is to make sure the students understand the other pieces that go into the process down the road so that they can be as best prepared for it as possible. So that's the resume builder piece and the career piece. And then from here, just kind of a glimpse at where we take it from there. As I mentioned, the career interest profiler. This is another one of the career interest inventory or the career assessments available in Naviance. Yes, I don't want to save those changes. This again gives students slightly more targeted results. I won't go too much into it because I don't want to muddy the waters with the cluster finder too much. Much of it is the same, but the cluster finder allows students to start to get a sense of general areas that might be of interest to them. Again, the human services, the law, education, business, whatever it might be. That profiler puts a little bit of a finer point on it. It builds off of some of the clusters the students identify in freshman year. And then in sophomore year, it starts to more focus on specific careers. So students can start to kind of narrow that down a little bit more and find the careers that fit that. So it builds off this a little bit. That's what the counselors will be working with your children on in 10th grade. In In grade 11, the process starts to turn a little bit more towards the college search process. They'll use the college search and college supermatch feature to, again, start to take some of the career interests they've had and some of the knowledge they've developed of which majors can help to prepare them for those careers. And then they'll apply it to identifying schools that meet that criteria. As I did mention, that work can begin a little earlier. They can start to play around. And just to give you an example, if the child happens to be talking to a friend of theirs or an older sibling and they say, oh, you know what, you were interested in business, I know a really good school for that. Start to look at CUNY Baruch. The child can go to, ninth graders do have access to the college tab as well. They can type in the name of the school and get some helpful information about it as well when it loads. There we go. So they start to get an idea of the average tuition cost per year within different income ranges. And I won't go too much into this because we'll do this later, and I don't want to throw too much information, but a school's average graduation rate, their average acceptance rate, in the admissions tab, again, that admissions data, application history from the Wheatley School. So by year, going back as far as 2011, the number of students who applied, and then the acceptance outcomes, scattergrams as well. Again, giving just a sense of the GPA and SAT or ACT concordance. So this student, because I want to make it easier to see the scattergram, the student falls. Actually, this is a ninth grade sample, so the student's not going to be plotted because they don't have an SAT. But as you can see here, say I'm a student with a 3.8 GPA and a 1200 SAT, I would fall right around here, and I can start to identify how many green checks are around me. And the more green checks that are around me, historically, that means the more students from Wheatley that have been accepted to a given school with that admissions profile. The more red X's I see, the more denials, and I can hover it over and see not the name of the child. The data is kept confidential and it's kept anonymous, but I can see the admission or rejection profile of students over the years, which helps to give me a sense, again, of how appropriate a school is for me to apply to. This is work we're really looking to do with the students as they get a little bit later into high school. Our primary focus for them, as I say right now, is identifying their areas of strength, their areas of interest, and how they can leverage those to help them identify areas of or career areas that are of interest to them, and what preparation then they need to build from it. And then in 12th grade, Naviance's primary function really is just, again, a little bit more of that college research, but primarily it's the data. It's us sending out their application materials to them through Naviance for colleges, and then the students identifying for us where they've been accepted, where they've been denied, where they may have been waitlisted, so we can keep that data that you just saw on the scattergram fresh for the student. And again, I did walk you through the college search tool, the opportunity that students do have to identify those schools that meet their interest. So from there, just a link to the Naviance website can be found here, can be accessed at student.naviance.com/Wheatley. I will put this presentation up on the guidance department website on the Wheatley homepage, so you will be able to access that link through there. But the Naviance website itself is also linked on the school website. If you would like a parent account, this is something I have been offering to parents at the end of each of these presentations. It will link to your child's account. So as they take any of those career assessments, any cluster results that they've gotten, any clusters that they favorite, when it comes time for them to do searches, any colleges that they've favorited, you are able to see it as well. You're able to look at the same data they are. So I have linked a form here. You'll be able to click it in the presentation on the website, but what I will also do is I'll put a link to it in the chat right now. I just ask that you fill that out if you would like a parent account. And then from there, that's really just a fairly brief overview of the different pieces of Naviance that as your students are using it. Do you have any questions, or does anyone have any questions that I can help with? Feel free to unmute, or you can use the chat. Okay. All right. Um, as we go through, of course, you may think of questions if you do decide you would like a parent account. You may look at some things and want a little bit more information. Please do feel free, reach out to your guidance counselor, reach out to me. We are here to work with you. Again, the expansion of Naviance into the lower grades is something that we as a department feel will help our students to make more informed and stronger decisions, both as to careers and where they'd like to find themselves post-secondary. So this is something we're working hard to make sure the students have and utilize to its fullest potential. I heard someone's raised a hand. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, hi. So, as you said, right now it's not available for younger grades, like as in seventh grade or eighth grade.
So it's funny you should ask that. I actually have been meeting with Mr. Stander and Miss Rossi. We have been talking about ways in which we are going to roll out Naviance to some of the grades over at Willits Road. In fact, sixth and seventh grade are the ones that we've talked about. I actually am meeting together with them after school tomorrow to plan some of our push-ins into the sixth and seventh grade classes. So historically, this is not a program we've used at Willits Road. It has been Wheatley exclusive, but our plan is before we leave this year for this to be introduced to some of the students at Willits Road as well. So the Willits Road students, you're right, won't have seen it yet, but we are actually planning on using some middle school appropriate assessments in Naviance with them this spring
Mhm.
also.
So, would you be doing it for the present seventh graders this year?
The current seventh graders, yes, that is
Okay,
one of the grade levels we are planning on targeting.
that's perfect. And is it possible for us just to do it like because it's provided through school, so I just cannot sit with my seventh grader and do it, just for my curiosity or knowledge.
I mean, when you say walk through it with them, you mean just any given assessment, or
Yeah,
providing
yeah,
the
like
student with an account?
yeah, providing an account and doing an assessment with them. Is it
So
possible?
that will be possible. What we'll be doing is we do find it easier for the child for them to get their account through the school. So that initial setup, there's an access code that they need. It takes a little bit of time. So once Mr. Stander and Miss Rossi walk the students through getting them their accounts, as the high school counselors did with the ninth graders this past week, then the students will have I won't say full access because there'll be some pieces there, such as the college piece, that'll likely be high school exclusive. But they'll have full access to these career assessment features, and then yes, as a parent, they'll be able to take them as much as they would like. So you will be able to sit with them and walk them through that as well, in addition to anything we do in class. So that opportunity will be there.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Any other questions or anything I can help with? Yes, yes. Another hand. Go ahead.
Good evening. Thank you for the presentation, Mr. O'Brien.
Sure.
Did I hear that it is possible for a student to take the assessment many times or several times? What's the
Yes.
frequency that you recommend? Because they may be goofing off the first time, or they may not understand what the question is really asking them.
Mhm.
So how often can they take it?
They can take it as often as they would like. There is, for the cluster finder, especially, and the career interest profiler, no cap on the amount of times these assessments can be taken. Again, for me, I recommend if you were to take it in ninth grade, as long as you take it earnestly, and you're answering the questions seriously, to take it once per year should be more than fine. In some cases, a student may not really even necessarily need to do it more often than that. Because remember, as an example with the cluster finder, next year the students will take the career interest profiler, and it'll give them sort of more, I guess, not refined, but more pointed results. So at that point, they may not necessarily need to go back to the cluster finder because now they've got a new set of results coming from the profiler. But I would say If the student is unsure and they say, oh, you know what, I kind of rushed through that a little bit, I didn't answer it fully, they absolutely have that opportunity to take it as many times as they would like. More than once a year really shouldn't be necessary. But of course, if the child feels they'd like to see it again, then they have that opportunity fully. They can access it anytime. Naviance is available, any hour of the day, any day of the week, and throughout the summer as well. So this is not access that they lose on summer break. They'll have this throughout their time here at Wheatley.
Thank you. I have another question, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Do you happen to know how often Hobson's, which is the parent company of Naviance, right?
Mhm.
Do you happen to know how often they update the career clusters and information in light of changes in the various industries? So there's this huge change caused by robotic process automation, even in fields such as accounting, which you would never think such change would occur. But the point is, how often do the careers get updated in the system so that we don't steer students towards majors that are pretty much outdated?
Absolutely. So in terms of how frequently Hobson's updates the information in the careers, I'll be honest, I'm not sure. They don't typically report that piece to us. They more frequently, if there's kind of a more major overhaul, they'll let us know. This was a rather large push from Naviance, and it is very recent, as I say, really within the last month or so. So the information that's in there right now is very up to date. But I'll be honest, I'd have to kind of reach out to them and look into that because I do know the information does get updated. I have noticed changes just throughout my use of it over the years as a counselor and as an administrator. But in terms of an exact frequency, I'm not 100% sure. I'd have to look into that and kind of let you know. If you would like a follow up on that, if you wouldn't mind sending me an email separately, just so I know how to get in touch with you, I'll reach out to Naviance and I'll find out for you.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Absolutely. I do see another hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask you to share the link for the parent access once again, please.
Sure. That is in the chat, but let me just,
Okay.
I'll repaste. Okay. That should be there for everyone. Any other questions or concerns or anything I can do to kind of help clarify some of the information from this evening? Okay. Well, yep, we've got another hand.
Yeah, it's me again. I was just noticing that Naviance uses the Holland code to identify career interests.
Yes.
Do you happen to know if it also uses a combination of the Myers-Briggs personality tests and whether it's a full test or if it's one of those, 16personalities.com that you go and you take a free, you know what I'm talking about, right?
I do. The career interest profiler aligns with the Holland scale. There is also some of the assessments that align more towards the middle school. Off the top of my head, I think it may be the Strengths Explorer, and that aligns more to the Holland scale. In terms of Myers-Briggs, I have not noticed that they utilize that particularly with fidelity, if at all. Some of these assessments, and as you go through it with your child, you'll kind of see it really identifies more personality areas and how they align. But Myers-Briggs specifically, not that I can say I've seen. It really is much more Holland heavy. And again, you see that more with, I want to say, Strengths Explorer, which is more middle school. And of course, the Career Interest Profiler actually gives you some Holland results along with careers.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you, sir.
Sure. I did see another hand go up, I believe. I could be wrong, or it could have been a mistake. Okay. All right. Well, if there are no other questions, I'd like to thank you all for your time this evening and coming. And again, if any questions do happen to spring to mind after our presentation this evening, please do not hesitate to reach out to the counselors and myself. We are here to support you and your children over the next 4 years of high school as the students do start to plan for life after Wheatley. So please don't hesitate to reach out. I'd like to thank you all for coming, and please have a good evening.